There are moments when the world quietly sends a warning before something big happens. Moments when the signs are right in front of us, but most people are too busy, too distracted, or too comfortable to notice them. Right now, the silver market is sending one of those warnings. And it is not small, it is loud, it is serious, and it is something every person who cares about their money, their savings, and their future should be paying attention to. Pause. Imagine waking up one morning and seeing the price of silver falling faster than anyone expected. Surprised. Imagine the shock across the financial world as investors start asking the same question: what is happening? Markets move every day, but sometimes a move is not just a normal change. Sometimes it is a signal that something deeper is shifting beneath the surface. This is the moment where awareness becomes power, because while many people will ignore the early signs, a few will stop, look closely, and realize that these signals matter. They understand that financial storms never arrive without warning. There are always clues, always whispers before the noise. Silver has always been more than just a metal. For many people, it represents security. It represents protection in uncertain times. It represents a way to hold real value when the world feels unstable. So when something unusual begins to happen in this market, it deserves attention. The truth is, the biggest financial surprises rarely happen without signals first, but only those who stay alert, who stay curious, and who stay willing to learn are the ones who catch those signals early. This is one of those moments where paying attention could make the difference between reacting too late and being prepared before the crowd even realizes what is happening. Now think about what this really means for you. Not for big investors on television, not for giant banks, not for financial experts sitting in offices far away. Think about your own savings, your own plans, the money you worked for day after day. Because when silver begins to shake, the impact does not stay inside the market. It travels outward, quietly touching the lives of ordinary people. Many people see silver as just another commodity, just another number on a chart. But for millions of people around the world, silver is something much deeper. It is a store of value. It is protection during uncertain times. It is a small shield against inflation, economic pressure, and financial instability. It is something people hold on to when they want to protect their hard work. So, when a warning appears in the silver market, it is not just about prices moving up or down. It becomes personal. It becomes about whether the value you trusted is still standing strong. It becomes about whether your financial safety net could suddenly feel thinner than you expected. Imagine someone who spent years slowly building their savings, buying silver little by little because they believed it would protect them. Imagine the emotions they feel when headlines begin to talk about a possible crash. Fear, confusion, uncertainty, questions start filling their mind. Did I make the right decision? What happens next? Should I act or wait? This is the moment where awareness becomes powerful, because the difference between panic and confidence is knowledge. The difference between loss and protection often comes down to understanding what is really happening before the crowd reacts. And right now, the conversation around silver is beginning to touch the very thing people value most: their financial security. Here is the hard truth about financial markets. Most people do not react when the first warning appears. They wait, they watch. They assume everything will return to normal, and by the time they finally realize something serious is happening, the opportunity to act calmly has already disappeared. This pattern repeats again and again in every market cycle. At the beginning, only a few people notice the signals. A few investors start asking questions. A few analysts begin raising concerns. But the majority of people continue with their daily lives, believing the situation is not urgent. They tell themselves it will pass, that the market always recovers, that there is nothing to worry about. But markets do not always give second chances. When momentum changes, it can move fast, faster than people expect. What starts as a small shift can quickly grow into something much bigger. And when that moment arrives, emotions take control. Panic spreads, decisions become rushed, and the same people who once ignored the warning suddenly wish they had acted earlier. Think about how many times history has shown this lesson. The early signs were there, but only a few people were paying attention. The majority waited until headlines became loud, until prices moved dramatically, until fear replaced comfort. By then, reacting calmly becomes much harder. This is why awareness matters so much, because the goal is not to panic. The goal is to see clearly while others are still unsure. The goal is to understand what is happening before the crowd begins to rush. The people who protect their wealth are not always the fastest. They are simply the ones who notice the signal before everyone else started running. There are moments when the noise of the world suddenly feels quieter and something deeper begins to demand your attention. This is one of those moments, because what is happening with silver right now may look like just another movement on a chart, just another headline in the endless stream of financial news. But sometimes the most important signals arrive quietly, before the crowd fully understands their meaning. Take a step back for a second and think about how powerful silver has been throughout history. For centuries, people have trusted it as real value. When currencies changed, when economies struggled, when uncertainty filled the air, silver remained something people could hold on to. It represented stability in times when stability felt rare. That is why this moment deserves more than a quick glance. It deserves real attention, because when a market that has carried so much trust begins to show signs of pressure, it raises questions that go beyond simple price movement. It forces people to pause and think about the bigger picture. What forces are moving behind the scenes? What changes might be coming that many people are not seeing yet? This is not about creating fear. It is about recognizing that important moments in finance rarely announce themselves with perfect clarity. They begin quietly, they grow slowly, and the people who take the time to understand those early signs often place themselves in a stronger position than those who only react after the situation becomes obvious. When you slow down and truly look at what is happening, you begin to see that this moment may not just be another small shift in the market. It may be a signal asking people to pay closer attention, to ask better questions, and to understand the forces shaping the future of their wealth. But here is the powerful part of every warning. A warning is not meant to scare you. A warning is meant to wake you up. It is a signal that gives you time to understand, time to think clearly, time to turn uncertainty into strength. When most people hear the words market crash, their first reaction is fear. Their minds jump straight to loss, panic, and chaos. But the truth is, every serious investor, every wise saver, and every person who protects their wealth knows something important. Information is power, and early information is even more powerful. Right now, the silver market may be sending a signal, and that signal is not just a threat. It is also an opportunity to become more aware, more prepared, and more confident in the decisions you make. Because the people who succeed during uncertain times are not the ones who ignore warnings. They are the ones who listen carefully and learn from them. Think about the difference between someone who is surprised by a storm and someone who sees the clouds forming early. The first person feels panic when the rain begins. The second person already moved their shelter, already protected what matters, already prepared for what is coming. That is the real power of awareness. It transforms fear into clarity. It turns confusion into strategy. It gives you the chance to look at the situation calmly and ask the right questions. What is really happening in the silver market? Why are these signals appearing now? And what smart steps can be taken before the majority even realizes the situation is changing? Because sometimes the greatest advantage is not money, luck, or timing. Sometimes the greatest advantage is simply seeing the signal before the crowd does. But this is also the moment where mindset matters more than anything else. Because when markets shake, when headlines start sounding serious, and when uncertainty begins to spread, people react in very different ways. Some people panic, some people freeze, some people simply look away and hope the situation will solve itself. But the strongest investors, the calm thinkers, the people who protect their future, they respond differently. They do not let fear control their decisions. They pause, they breathe, they look at the facts, they ask the right questions. And most importantly, they prepare instead of panic. Every financial challenge in history has created two types of people: the ones who were overwhelmed by the moment, and the ones who used the moment to become stronger and wiser. The difference between these two groups is not luck. It is awareness, discipline, and the courage to face reality instead of avoiding it. This is where resilience becomes powerful, because markets will always rise and fall. Economies will always move through cycles. Prices will always change. But the people who stay steady, who keep learning, and who remain calm under pressure are the ones who come out stronger on the other side. Think about the confidence that comes from being prepared. Imagine looking at a difficult financial moment and knowing you took the time to understand it, knowing you stayed alert when others were distracted, knowing you chose knowledge instead of fear. That kind of mindset transforms uncertainty into strength. It turns confusion into clarity, and it reminds you that even in moments when markets feel unstable, strong thinking and calm decisions can protect what you have worked so hard to build. And this is the moment where everything begins to come together, because a warning is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of awareness. It is the moment where you decide whether you will simply follow the crowd or whether you will step forward with clarity, curiosity, and the courage to understand what is really happening. Right now, something important may be unfolding in the silver market. Signals are appearing, conversations are growing louder, and questions are beginning to spread across the financial world. Some people will ignore these signs completely. Others will hear about them later, when the situation has already moved forward. But a small group of people will choose to pay attention right now. That choice matters more than many people realize. Because when you take the time to understand the situation early, you give yourself something powerful. You give yourself the ability to think clearly while others are still confused. You give yourself the chance to learn, to prepare, and to protect what you have worked hard to build. This is not about predicting the future perfectly. No one can do that. It is about staying alert in a world that changes quickly. It is about recognizing that important shifts rarely appear overnight. They start quietly, with signals that only those who are paying attention begin to notice. And as we move forward and look deeper into what is happening with silver, one thing becomes clear. Understanding this moment could shape the way you think about your money, your strategy, and your financial confidence, because sometimes the most valuable thing you can gain is not a prediction, but the awareness that allows you to move with wisdom instead of surprise.